board games that we don't play. We all have them. They just sit on our shelf and collect dust. Whether they're really big and arduous and hard to get to the table, or maybe they have a really complex rule set, or maybe you look at it and you say, you know what, just don't really want to play that game. Whatever the reason is, there's probably some games like that in your collection, and there is in mine. And today we're going to take a look at 5 games that'll be leaving my collection. This is a channel focusing on solo board gaming and solo modes for board games, and all of these games can be played solo. So with that, let's dive in. Okay, the first game on my list is from Lucky Duck Games. It is a story-driven RPG type game, and that is Destinies, where you are going through, you're playing these different scenarios, you have these locations on these cards, and the choices you make in one scenario might affect you in the next scenario, and you're trying to fulfill your destiny. The thing with this game is the solo mode plays completely different from the 2 or 3 player version of the game, which is something that I don't really love. In the solo mode, it's like a race against the clock, which is not something that I really like in an exploration story type of game. You know, I want to be able to take my time and kind of make sure I get to all the different locations that I want to get to. Also, if you do play this with more than one player, in that version of the game, it just takes a really long time for what the stories are. I feel like there's not enough meat in the stories to really command that long of a gameplay session, or it's sometimes like 2 or 3 hours where you're going through and you're just going to different locations and you're like, okay, let me go here. Do I have the resource I need now to complete my destiny? No. Okay, let's go over here. Is it over here? No, let's travel over here. Like, it's just a game of like hide and seek where you're trying to find the exact thing that you need, and then once you finally find it, you can fulfill your destiny. But it feels like if the game was just a little bit shorter, that would work a little bit better. Or if I didn't have to just kind of do the same thing every single turn. That's another thing that kind of hurts this game, is it's just like you don't really have a lot of different actions you can choose from. You might be able to get resources at one location or talk to somebody at a location or whatever, but for the most part, you know, like the same kind of basic things. Now, I have heard some of the expansions are really fun. They have different settings. I haven't tried that out. I'm also interested in the Dark Quarter, which is a new game from Lucky Duck and Van Ryder that's going to be coming out, I think, later this year. It's kind of a gritty crime noir game using the same system of Destinies, though, which is a good system. It works well. Like, it's a well-made mechanical game. But I think for me, it's just not a ton of fun to play solo, and there are better story or exploration games that you can get out rather than this one. Okay, the next game on my list is from a very famous designer, Vladimir Suchy, and also Ross Arnold, and this is from Rio Grande, and this is Woodcraft. So what you're doing in Woodcraft, this is an action selection type game, also kind of like a contract fulfillment game, and dice manipulation are all being used in this game, where you are using your dice, and basically they are acting as wood or sometimes other resources, where you can, you know, combine your dice together to make it a higher number, or say if you have like a 6, you can chop it in half and maybe make it a 2 and a 4 or a 3 and a 3. And I think for this particular game, for me, it's just a lot of rules overhead. This is already kind of a heavy game to begin with, and then when you add in the solo mode, it's just a little too much for me. It's a little too brain burning. When I'm trying to look at, you know, okay, the action wheel, what do I want to do on that? How can I fulfill this contract? Maybe I want to use this tool that I have on my player board. It's a lot of things that you're thinking about at once. And if you like that, then I think you might like this particular game. But for me, it's just a little bit too much, and I don't really, you know, it doesn't really get to the table very often. I look at it on the shelf and then I'm like, nah, I'd rather play just something else that's maybe a more fun form of this type of game. I will say the action wheel is cool. I don't see that in a ton of games, and like the longer you go without picking the action gets stronger. And also the solo mode, you know, they might take that action to kind of prevent you from doing it and gain stuff. So I think just for me, like I said, just a little too heavy rules wise. Really well produced game though, looks really nice on the table, but this one is just going to be leaving my collection. Next up on the list is what I would consider a classic. You will see this on a lot of solo gaming lists, a lot of other board game lists in general, and that is from Portal Games, and that is Robinson Crusoe, Adventures of the Cursed Island. That's correct. Oh, Adventures on the Cursed Island, excuse me. So in this game, you are exploring. It's another exploration adventure game, different from Destinies though. And the thing that I just don't love about Robinson Crusoe is I feel like it's just too punishing. And if you like that sort of thing, you will enjoy this game. Look, there's a lot of, story in this game. There's a lot of fun situations that you can get yourself into. But for me, when I play a game, I want to be able to feel like if I lose, I don't mind that at all. In fact, I lose a lot, but I want to feel like that loss was warranted or that I had a chance to at least succeed. Maybe I lost because of something that I did and I didn't play with a very good strategy. That's perfectly fine for me. Or maybe I made some bad decisions along the way. That works out too. Robinson Crusoe just kind of punishes you for no reason. And for that, I don't really love it. You might roll a die and lose your shelter, or you might not have any resources, or you might get attacked by an animal. Whatever the case may be, it just feels like it's so punishing and things are coming at you all the time and you have like no time to recover and build back up before the next thing happens. And it's just not a lot of fun for me personally. It works great solo. Also, in other editions, I don't know specifically what edition this is. Some of the early editions have kind of a really crappy rule book. That's improved over the past couple of editions. Also, Awakened Realms, I think, just did a really blinged out edition of this that they cleaned it up a little bit too. So the rules could be a little hard to understand, but once you get going, everything kind of clicks well. It's just for me, I would rather play a game that isn't so punishing and so mean. So for that reason, Robinson Crusoe is going to go to another island. Next up, we have a game from Devere, and I really like Devere as a publisher. They've got a lot of really cool themes that they work with, and this one is no different. This is, if I can get it up here, is Lacrimosa. In this game, the thought is that Mozart died, couldn't conclude his Requiem, and so you are trying to basically compose and finish that for him. And in Lacrimosa, it's kind of the same thing that I talked about with Woodcraft, where it's a lot of rules overhead and maybe just a little bit too much for me. I think if you had, more people to play this with, if you could play this with 2 or 3 or 4 people, it may not be as bad because you're not trying to manage what you're trying to do and then also what the solo mode is trying to do. I find the rulebook just a little confusing as well. It was a little hard my first couple plays to know, okay, exactly what am I trying to do and what is the solo mode trying to do, or just like references to components, things like that were a little difficult to figure out in the rule book. Also, it is a lot of components and it is a lot of setup, and I just don't feel like that setup time, maybe that play time, is worth it for the experience that it gives you. But if you enjoy this theme, or if you enjoy other games from Devere, I would suggest checking it out. Like if you're a fan of classical music, I think you will really enjoy this game. But for me, there's just other types of games that are like this that I would rather play instead. So Lacrimosa, somebody else is going to have to help Mozart compose because I'm not going to do it anymore. And the last game on this list is from Board and Dice, and I have a couple of their other games which I really like playing solo. Teotihuacan, Barcelona, I've played solo a couple times, but for this one I just bounce off of it, and that is Terracotta Army. And Terracotta Army is like an area control game, and I think solo, that's just kind of difficult to make work. Now, it doesn't have a solo mode included in the box, but the publisher has released like an official solo mode for the game. So you just have to go online, download that. It's got a few more things that you add in terms of like some cards that you can print out, and then also obviously the rules for the solo mode. I tried it a couple of different times, but I just felt like the solo mode was kind of clunky. Again, it wasn't initially designed to be like a one-player game. Anyway, on the box it says 2 to 4 people. I think if you have multiple people, this game could be a lot of fun, because I think where the fun comes in like an area control game is you're competing against your friends or maybe other people that are like actually at the table with you. When you're competing against a solo mode, it just doesn't have that same feel. Also, sometimes the turns for the solo mode are kind of long because you're trying to figure out exactly where you need to place their piece and where they want it to be the most advantageous for them. So I played it a couple of times. It's really cool in terms of like all the different little plastic miniatures that come in the game. Those are really neat, and it's not hard to understand at all. Like the rule set is pretty simple, honestly, for a board and dice game. This is probably one of the simpler ones that you could grab. But I just think for me, I just didn't love either of my plays when I got this at the table a couple of different times, and I just think an area control game is hard to make work when you're just playing by yourself. So for those reasons, Terracotta Army will be going to another home. Okay, and that's it. The 5 games that are leaving my collection as of May 2024. Just to recap them once again, they were Destinies, Robinson Crusoe, Lacrimosa, Terracotta Army, and also Woodcraft. All of those will be headed out of the collection, and hopefully somebody else can have a lot of fun with them. But I've got so many other games to play that I will just get something else to the table besides these 5 games. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. There's lots of other videos on the channel, as well as some other just general board game videos, and then also some solo mode reviews for different things. Just did one for the Lost Ruins of Arnak, the Missing Expedition. I've also got ones on World Wonders, Apiary, Heat, Pedal to the Metal. So be sure to check those out too. Until next time, I'm Jared. Thanks so much for watching. You've been checking out Specifically Solo.